Israeli strikes continue in Gaza as UN Chief Antonio Guterres warns of a health system collapse in the besieged territory.
Greece and Turkey agree to reboot their relations and work together to tackle migration as President Erdogan visits Athens.
European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen warns China that the EU will not tolerate unfair competition at a high-stakes summit in Beijing.
German Chancellor Scholz expresses his support for Jewish people as he lit the first candle of the Hanukkah festival in Berlin. Further Israeli strikes on northern Gaza sent a large plume of smoke drifting into the air on Thursday, as captured in video footage taken from the Israeli city of Sderot. Hamas Health Ministry said that in 2 months of war, more than 17,000 Palestinians have died, 350 of which have been killed and 900 injured in the last 24 hours. In the southern town of Rafah, aerial attacks have razed neighborhoods to the ground, while fighting rages along the length of the Gaza Strip.
ضربة مباشرة، الناس كانت ماشية في الشارع وما فيش أي تحذير نهائي، ما شفنا لهم ضربة تدورنا بدون أي تحذير.
Another strike in Khan Yunis at a residential block. Dozens of people are believed to be trapped beneath the rubble. Israeli bombs are not the only threat to Gazans. These images from a UN distribution center in the central Gaza Strip shows thousands of Palestinians queuing for basic needs, such as food and water. In a letter addressed to the President of the UN Security Council, Secretary General Antonio Guterres warned Gaza's health system was collapsing and repeated calls for a ceasefire. An investigation into the deadly shelling of a group of journalists in South Lebanon claims the blast was likely caused by an Israeli tank strike. A Reuters reporter was killed and 6 other media members were injured, including 2 from AFP. The French agency began an investigation after the incident on October 13th. It found the shell was probably fired from near an Israeli border village. Photographer Christina Assi lost her leg in the explosion.
There was no Hamas around us, no Hezbollah around us. There was no one. We were just a group of journalists doing our job. And we were attacked by Israel twice, not once, and which resulted in my leg being amputated.
The Israeli military has said it regrets the journalist's death and the injuries caused to the others. It says it's investigating the blast but has not admitted responsibility. Israel and Hezbollah have exchanged fire along the Lebanon border many times since Hamas's October 7 attack.
Greece and Turkey on Thursday agreed to reboot their relations and usher in a new era of ties between the two NATO allies but historic foes. In a landmark visit of Turkish President Erdogan to Athens, the two countries agreed to boost trade and establish communication channels between coast guards to tackle the key issue of migration.
Στο μεταναστευτικό διαπιστώσαμε την σημαντική μείωση των ροών το τελευταίο διάστημα, ως αποτέλεσμα της συστηματικής φύλαξης των χερσαίων και των θαλασσίων συνόρων μας. Θα πρόσθετα ωστόσο και λόγω της πολύ καλύτερης συνεργασίας της αστυνομίας, του λιμενικού και της ακτοφυλακής και των δύο χωρών. Και αυτή η συνεργασία μπορεί να βελτιωθεί και πρέπει να βελτιωθεί ακόμα περισσότερο.
In a joint press conference with Greek Prime Minister Mitsotakis, Erdogan said there was no problem that couldn't be resolved between them.
Biz Ege'yi bir barış ve işbirliği denizi haline getirelim istiyoruz. Türkiye, Yunanistan olarak atacağımız ortak adımlarla tüm dünyaya örnek olalım arzusundayız. Açık söylüyorum, bizim aramızda çözülemeyecek kadar hiçbir sorun yok.
But differences do remain, especially over Cyprus. Ankara favours a fair solution, quote, based on the realities of the island, implying a two-state solution. Athens, meanwhile, says the only solution is based on the reunification of the island, based on the UN resolutions.
Η σημαντικότερη από τις συμφωνίες που υπεγράφησαν είναι η κοινή διακήρυξη φιλικών σχέσεων και καλής γειτονίας μεταξύ Ελλάδας και Τουρκίας, με την οποία οι δύο πλευρές επισφραγίζουν τη βούλησή τους για ήρεμα νερά στο Αιγαίο, για διατήρηση δηλαδή του ήρεμου κλίματος που επικρατεί μεταξύ Αθήνας και Άγκυρας τους τελευταίους μήνες, καθώς και για περαιτέρω οικοδόμηση εμπιστοσύνης μεταξύ των δύο πλευρών. Από την Αθήνα για το Euronews, Φέη Δουλγέρη.
European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen labelled it a summit of choices, and it wasn't much beyond that. At the first in-person EU-China summit in over 4 years, leaders from both sides met Thursday in Beijing, where frank words were exchanged but no solid action was committed to. By far the biggest issue of the day was the huge trade imbalance Europe faces with the Asian giant, which currently stands at nearly 400 billion euros. And Commission President von der Leyen says that the EU will no longer turn a blind eye to it.
Politically, European leaders will not be able to tolerate that our industrial base is undermined by unfair competition. We like competition. It makes us better. It lowers prices. It's good for the consumers. But competition needs to be fair. We insist on fair competition within the single market. Therefore, we also insist on fair competition from companies that come to our single market.
Tensions between Brussels and Beijing have steadily risen over the past year as the EU seeks to de-risk its economy from China. In September, the Commission opened up a probe into subsidised Chinese electric cars entering the bloc's market, riling Beijing in the process. At the summit, Chinese President Xi Jinping himself warned Europe not to implement protectionist trade policies, but at the same time the door was left open to a deepening of ties.
中国正在推进高质量发展和高水平开放，愿将欧盟作为经贸合作的关键伙伴，支持欧方坚持战略自主，同中方一道践行真正的多边主义，为维护世界和平、促进共同发展、应对全球性挑战而携手努力。
For this analyst from Merix, a think tank currently sanctioned by China, the summit may not have delivered on much, but it has set the EU's tone for Beijing that if it does not take action, then Europe will respond.
It seemed that the EU has put on the table the fact that it really wants China to engage constructively, and if not, it's going to take actions. It's very much a signal that the EU side is expecting action to happen soon on the Chinese side. If not, then our relationship might get a little bit more complex in terms of European responses.
Cooperation on climate change was also a key topic, despite China's latest commitment to a whole host of fresh coal power plants. On Ukraine, Brussels reiterated its desire for Beijing to help end the war and to stop Russian businesses from circumventing Western sanctions.
The US military has grounded an entire fleet of Osprey aircraft following a deadly crash 1 week ago off the coast of Japan. 8 American service members lost their lives. Only 6 bodies have so far been recovered. Preliminary investigations indicated a material failure. The crash has raised questions about the safety of the Osprey aircrafts, which have been involved in multiple fatal accidents since becoming operational in 2007.
This is Drina. Here, near the Serbian city of Loznica, surrounded by dense forests, thousands of migrants fleeing war in the Middle East have lost their lives in their search for a better life.
Problem je što mi zapravo ne znamo ko se sahranjuje. Svi ti grobovi su obeleženi kao NN lice i samo stoji godina smrti. Tako da vrlo često mi ne znamo zapravo ko se sahranjuje.
It is not known exactly how many migrants have drowned in the Drina. We may never know the names of the people who have died crossing the Balkans in their search for a better life. Institutions do not keep official records. The deaths of migrants on the Balkan route are recorded here. 400 deaths have been recorded since 2015.
Siamo spari, Vicky, qui, prodavamo kupe cigare, poi spone se vrate.
Ali pokušavaju da preplivaju Drinu?
Pokušavaju. Kako stalno pokušavaju.
Mogu misliti koliko tek ljudi umre i za koje niko ne zna. Ja stvarno te zime neke koje su bile te od minus 20 i to kad su oni išli i kad su prelazili te silne reke i to sve, mislim, on zaspi samo negde i oni samo nastave dalje. On ostane tu. To ćemo mi nalaziti ta tela po tim džunglama u okolini granica i za 10 godina ćemo mi nalaziti.
Here, in the Lozhnica cemetery, are 12 identical mounds, isolated from the rest. Their names are unknown.
German Chancellor Olaf Scholz expressed his unwavering support for Jewish people as he lit the first candle of the Hanukkah Jewish festival in Berlin. Handing over the light were relatives of a Jewish man abducted by Hamas during the October 7 attack on Israel.
Chanukka steht für Hoffnung und Zuversicht. Beides brauchen wir in diesen Tagen ganz besonders. Der Terrorangriff der Hamas auf Israel hat uns alle tief erschüttert. Er richtet sich gegen den einzigen jüdischen Staat und seine Bewohnerinnen und Bewohner. Er richtet sich aber zugleich gegen die Menschlichkeit selbst.
At Jerusalem's Western Wall, over 130 candles were lit to remember Israelis who were taken hostage by Hamas militants. Supporters and relatives of hostages walked in Tel Aviv with candles to mark the first day of the 8-day Festival of the Lights that symbolized the triumph of light over darkness. About 240 people were taken hostage by Hamas militants on October 7. Hamas has since released 105 Israeli and foreign captives.